just to wrap up this day, because there was a lot of stuff that was crazy. And we'll talk more about this in the fun half, but the interesting thing, and I would like it to be otherwise, but I just don't think it's the case, is that there was no ideological consistency, at least on the context of the left. There was really no ideological story here on the left. I think Northam is going to be, I may have favored Tom Perriello, over Northam, but I think in the main, he's going to be a pretty good governor in Virginia. And I say that maybe partially because I'm predisposed, because I thought Terry McAuliffe ended up being better than I anticipated he would be. But we have a broad cross-section of Democratic candidates that won. You had a guy from the DSA who beat, and we'll talk more about him in the fun half, but you had a guy from the DSA who beat not only a longtime incumbent, but the majority whip in the House of Delegates. And when you're the majority whip, more often than not, maybe always, it means that you have the ability to raise a ton of cash because you raise that ton of cash for yourself, and then you have so much more ability to raise cash. You raise cash for other people, and then when you come to them and say, hey, we want you to vote this way, they go, well, I owe you one. And my understanding is he did not have a good relationship for whatever reason. I don't know anything about the details of this, but the story is that he was not sharing data with the Virginia Democrats. So clearly a lot of that support came outside of the normal channels, probably at least in part via the DSA. But the point being is we have a situation, it's quite clear, and we certainly had it in Virginia. In 2015, the Democrats only challenged 23 Republican delegates. This year, they challenged 54 of them. Now, Alec McGillis tweeted out, that is the Trump effect. And I think that's probably true, but it's not clear to me how many more of those 27, 28 are the Trump effect and how many are also, frankly, the Bernie effect and the spinoff from that, right? Because in a world where Hillary Clinton is president, you still have a Bernie Sanders who is now in the Senate majority although I guess it's conceivable she could have won and lost the Senate, but unlikely. You still have an ascendant Bernie Sanders with an organization that is out there encouraging people to run. People coming off of that campaign looking to run. Nevertheless, certainly Trump has added to those numbers and has grown the different organizations that Weigel went through that are supporting people running for the first time. But here's the thing. Whatever that number was yesterday, whatever the number was of people who were looking to jump into a city council race, looking to jump into a state Senate race, into a municipal race, that number is larger by 20% today, I would guess, because more people are going to be encouraged to do it. And here's the other thing that is clear is that because of the nature of a wave, that seats that weren't contested in the past, there's an opportunity for people who would not get mainstream Democratic support in the way that they would need. There's a chance for them to sneak in and actually win these elections. There's a really, and I don't want to say unprecedented opportunity, but pretty close to unprecedented opportunity. And the only reason why I don't say unprecedented is because there may be a precedent. I'm just not aware of it. Where everything is in play. And so you may get congressional seats that have not been contested in years. And it gives an opportunity for like organizations like the DSA, for parties like the Green Party to step in and say, like, nobody's challenged this Republican for a decade. And there's so much happening in this district just in terms of how many people are going to go out and vote for a city council person that has been encouraged to run for, run for anything. There's sort of a built-in, there's a wave. And so there's an opportunity for some real, from some very unexpected wins. And from people who are not, necessarily traditional candidates or candidates who have traditional backing. So this is, it's encouraging. In Virginia, 34% of the voters said that expressing opposition to Trump was the reason for their vote. I mean, really the key, I think, is what Weigel said. Barack Obama could not get his coalition out in the off-year elections. It appears that Donald Trump cannot do that either. And what is a little bit different is that generally Democrats don't go out and vote against, or people who vote for a Democrat aren't doing that to vote against somebody. And that's what we're getting in this off-year election. That didn't take a lot of effort to nationalize that race, right? I mean, Northam specifically didn't want to. Maybe in the last week he started raising it, and it was already nationalized. And women made the difference. I remember retweeting I think it was from Indivisible. They were sending, it was a busload of people from New York. And there was a picture of all the people in the bus who were going down there to canvass. And I think there was a couple of men on there. But largely, this has been the case since the election of Donald Trump. Middle-aged women have been driving much of this. They favored Northam by 16 points over Gillespie. Northam's margin is more than twice as wide as the margin Hillary Clinton won those voters by last year. Married women voted for Northam by 10 points. Trump actually had a 1-point lead with that group. Now, of course, the key here is that far more Democrats came out than normally come out in an off-year election. I mean, that is the key. It is just turnout. And that does not diminish the problem with gerrymandered districts. But in this instance, you can build a seawall that is 11 feet high and it will stop most of a storm surge. But when the storm surge is 12 feet high, then it goes over the 11-foot high wall. That's basically what it comes down to. In New Jersey, and so again, the Virginia delegate house, it is tied right now at 48-48. There are 4 recounts. Democrats lead in 2, Republicans lead in the other 2. Chances are that's what it's going to look like. It'll be 50-50. I don't know what happens, how that tie is broken, but it could be do we establish that yet, that it's the lieutenant governor breaks that tie? If so, it will be the second African-American ever elected to statewide office in Virginia, Justin Fairfax. But going around the country, in New Jersey, as expected, Phil Murphy easily won the governorship there from Chris Christie. In Washington State, there was a special election in I guess it's a suburb of Seattle, maybe. Sort of a wealthy suburb. It's a Republican district. Democrat Manka Dhingra won that special election. Her winning that gives Democrats control of all levers of government in Washington state, creating this wall of blue between Washington, Oregon, and California. And like we mentioned yesterday, governors of those three states are already getting together on all sorts of immigration, environmental, global warming, I guess, energy initiatives, healthcare. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens. Democrats added to their majority in the New Jersey State Senate. They won a Republican-held seat in the New Hampshire Statehouse. They won a mayorship in St. Petersburg, Florida. In Georgia, Democrats picked up 3 seats in the state houses there and destroyed the Georgian supermajority, which is huge. Sheila Oliver won lieutenant governor race in New Jersey. I don't know if she's the first lieutenant governor, African-American governor in New Jersey, but certainly noteworthy. There were 2 Latinas elected to the House. Oh, and in Virginia, Danica Rome, who I guess she was a journalist, won Virginia's 13th District House of Delegates. We mentioned her before. She is the first trans woman to win, I guess, in Virginia. There was a trans woman, an African-American trans woman, who won a seat on the Minneapolis City Council. So she was the first openly transgender African-American woman ever elected to public office in the U.S. I mentioned that Danica Rome ran against a 73-year-old, 26-year incumbent. And he was the guy who proposed a bill restricting which bathrooms transgender people could use. So he went down. I don't know how much that played in the race. I have a feeling it played maybe on the margins, but for the most part, I think she just won because there was a wave, and she sounds like an incredibly competent state rep. Talking about like potholes, talking about, bringing Medicaid to her district, et cetera, et cetera. In Philly, as you know, Larry Krasner won the DA race. He's a civil rights attorney. He's represented Occupy Philly, Black Lives Matter. He sued the city something like 50 times as a defense attorney. He'll be one of the most progressive, maybe in the country. Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos